Three companions in old age. The first companion, this is everywhere, without differentiation or degree, from the Diamond Sutra. From Rinzai, it is without a vestige of form, yet distinct in its solitary shining. The third companion, from Led Zeppelin, with no provisions but an open face to cross the straits of time. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As one gets older, it is really surprising how many devices one needs to keep going. In this case, well,
Even when you're younger.
well, Sesshin. Hope everybody's having a good time. Schedule is laid out. You don't have to wonder what happens next. Food is being cooked. Not just food, but good food. Weather's cooperating. Not too hot, not too cold. All we have to do is sit around. Speaking for myself, and I think many of us here, all of us go through what I like to call the arm wrestling phase of Zen practice. Trying to sharpen and strengthen ourselves to see into koans, polish our practice so that everything is just so. And now in my last years, I am slowly discovering that there's really very little one has to do or know about. Admiral Byrd went down to the South Pole in the 1920s, that is, to explore. And one of the elements of that expedition was to send two people down to the very South Pole and bury them in the ice in a Quonset hut and have them you know, take readings, see what's going on, gather data. For 6 months in the Antarctic night. But just before they were set to go out, one of the two volunteers took sick and couldn't go. And so he didn't think it was wise or compassionate to send the sole surviving member of the polar team by himself. And he thought it was a little bit pushy to ask for volunteers at that stage of the game. So he decided he would go himself. And so, at the beginning of the 6-month Antarctic night, his team all piled into some very primitive tractors and whatnot, and towed this Quonset hut into the gathering Antarctic night. And they buried him half under the ice, and there he stayed. And he had to stay for, I think, 2 extra months for reasons I can't recall right now. So there he is for 6 to 8 months, half buried in ice, with nobody but himself and the stars and the moon keep him company. Well, this is interesting, but what gives it the edge is that his kerosene generator, which provided both electricity and some heat, developed a problem in the exhaust pipe, such that half the exhaust was being exhausted into his living area. And so he spent the better part of 6 months going between freezing to death when he would turn it off and dying of asphyxiation when he turned it on. Inhaling and exhaling, waking up and going to sleep. And he wrote about this experience after he got back in a book that's titled Alone, which I recommend to everybody. Have you read it?
No.
You haven't read it?
No.
You're not, okay.
I'm not.
No, I haven't read it.
No.
Oh, okay. I haven't read it either. And in the foreword of this book, he writes, 2 or 3 pages and whatnot. And in there, he says, and this one faces the final enlightenment. There is very little one needs to know or be sure about. So, in these last years of my life, I find myself not so much getting rid of as just letting fade away ideas, things, practices that at one time or another I thought were vitally important to me. And I have settled on these 3, not settled, but as of the moment, these 3 passages accompany me. They are different from what I believe in. If someone asks me what I believe in, I say, well, I believe in 4 things. So he said, do you believe in God? And I'm not sure about that one. I said, well, what do you believe in? And I believe in 4 things. First one is the power of prayer, or as we might say, the power of Zazen. The second one is the power of science. If the scientists say that the universe is some 3.7 billion years old, I'm going to go with that. The third one is the power of mystery. That no matter how strenuously or for how long, however long the Buddha way is, I vow to follow it. However long, into infinitely. One can never know everything or be sure about everything. So if on your deathbed or in your final moments you have a question, that's okay. That power of mystery. And then finally, the fourth power is the power of kindness. There's no cost to kindness. Doesn't have to be explained or justified. So anyway, 3 companions. This is everywhere, without differentiation or degree, from the Diamond Sutra. When you really rest and commit yourself to that idea that this is everywhere, without differentiation or degree, it's in this teacup, these boards, these Dharma students, in the Zendo, outside of the Zendo, that leaf out there, that star at night, far away or near at hand. It is everywhere without differentiation or degree. So that no matter what we're facing, be it good or bad, helpful or impeding, this is the Dharma. So you don't have to look for it. Maybe a better way to say it is to look at it, to feel it, to be at one with it. So we get into sticky wickets, all kinds of confusions with ourselves primarily, but with others, with situations, with responsibilities, with people, good times, bad times. And if we just realize that any and all of this is it, just the way it is, just the way it is, there can be no fault. There can be no getting lost. If you feel confused, confusion is it. If you're sitting in Zazen, and it's really spectacular, deep, clear, and whatnot, that's it. And then you get up and you walk around and you sit back down again, and the next sitting stinks all the way through. Horrible. That's it also. So you don't have to fight with anything. You don't have to get anything out of the way. Whatever is in the way is it. Then the second companion is from Renzai. It's the final sentence out of my favorite passage in Renzai. The whole passage reads, "True sincerity is extremely difficult to attain, and the Buddha Dharma is deep and mysterious. I explain it all day long, but you students pay not the slightest heed. Though you trample it underfoot thousands, 10,000 times a day, you remain in utter darkness. It is without a vestige of form, yet distinct in its solitary shining. It is without a vestige of form. All of us, all of these things are without a vestige of form. And here we need to be kind of careful in what we understand by form. We would say solidness today, or thingness. The Greeks called them atoms, and then Leibniz came along and came up with something called monads, and so forth and so on. But there was always this belief that down at the bottom of everything, the bottom of this teacup, there's such a thing called teacup-ness, that essence of the teacup, without which the teacup would, I don't know, evaporate or something. And in the Judeo-Christian Islamic tradition, this eventually becomes the soul. The soul is what makes us what we are. Soul of Robert, Nikyu, the soul. As I said, it's without a vestige of form. If you keep tearing it apart, eventually you get down to, you can't tear it apart anymore. You're down somewhere in the area of the Planck length, Planck time. Anybody here know what the Planck length is? Okay, pretty small, yes? Planck's constant, I want to say, is 6.66 times 10 to the 30 minus 35. The idea being that you can't get any smaller than that. If you try to get smaller than that, well, you can't. And so quantum physics sort of agrees with this. There's no essence. It's without a vestige of form. Yet, neither is it invisible. It's distinct. This is the teacup. This is Nikyu. That's a clock. That's a board. That's the Makugyo. That's Roshi. That's the Buddha. The Zendo. So when someone says, I would like a cup of water, you don't bring them the Makugyo. You bring them a cup of water. Because even though nothing has an essence, neither is anything confused with anything else. Everything is distinct. And it's solitary shining. Renzai uses this phrase frequently. Solitary, shining, shining. Students are shining. Things are shining. The Dharma is shining, shining. Sun is shining. Lights are shining. This gathering is shining. It's full of it. Yet, as Renzai says, even though we trample that fact underfoot 1,000 times a day, we remain in utter darkness. What is it? It beats the heck out of me. Damnedest thing. And I've spent a lot of time with this companion, without a vestige of form, yet distinct. And it's shining. One point in Renzai Roku, he's addressing the Sangha, and they're having this interaction, and he says, it's not your liver that can understand. It's not that your body can understand, or the calluses on your feet can understand. It's you, shining distinctly, can understand. So if I'm not this, if I'm not this, if I'm not this, if I'm not talking during session, if I'm none of these things, then what am I? Well, from the first companion, this is everywhere without differentiation or degree. So somehow I, you, these things that we know and with which we are intimate, other things that we have no comprehension of. Each and everything is it. It is it. Think of that for a moment. Everything is it. Trying to get comfortable. That's it. Wondering how long he's going to rattle on. That's it too. Then finally, my third companion. I think I heard a chuckle or a snicker or two when I said this from the Led Zeppelin. Led Zeppelin is it too. How many people here have a Led Zeppelin record someplace at home? That's too bad. Some of you don't. It's interesting now, some 50 years after they disbanded, unfortunately, we're still talking about them. YouTube is filled with Led Zeppelin videos. No provisions but an empty face to cross the straits of time. That comes from their song Kashmir. The straits of time. A strait is usually a kind of a thin body of water between two land masses, like between Sicily and the boot of Italy, between Ireland and mainland England. So the straits of time can be thought of as life. From the moment we're born until the moment we take our last breath. That is the time that is allocated to us. Maybe short, medium, or long. When we are born, we are old enough to die. So we made it this far. My lifelong and beloved companion, my Sandra, she passed on 3-ish years ago. not unexpectedly, but nonetheless withdrew. And so as we cross the straits of time, we confront all sorts of things, all of which are it. Whether it's my wife dying, or whether your recent baby being born, you're it. And so as she died, or when she died, I reflected on this is everywhere. So her dying is the Dharma. As we cross the straits of time, we accumulate the tools of passage, education, enough money to buy a meal, a car, a house, a spouse, children, job, recognition of one fashion or another. And we sort of get accustomed to thinking of these resources for living. And they're all helpful for sure. But the ultimate tool, the ultimate resource for this passage is an open face, uncluttered, the way you were the moment you were born, you took your first breath, unworried about your cell phone, unworried about where the next bottle of food is going to come from. None of these concerns bothered you. And so you might say the process of growing up is the process of getting bogged down in slowly so that this is hard to see, may even be impossible to see. You trample it underfoot 1,000, 10,000 times a day. But you remain in utter darkness, cluttered. We all go to Doksan early on. Teacher gives us a koan, we come up with some sort of answer, or we come up with a response. We go into Doksan. Teacher asks us something, well, what do you think of it? And we come out with, teacher smiles, rings the bell. Because that's a cluttered response. It's not a response that springs from the source. There's a footnote in Renzai Roku, someplace they use this term, the Dharma Dhatu, and there's go to the back, I think it's 88, worn it out. It's really great. It says, the unifying, underlying absolute from which all things proceed. All things proceed. This proceeds from the Dharma, from the mystery, deep and mysterious. And so one of the ways of understanding Zen practice is trying to recapture our open face. Not speaking when there is nothing to be said. Not doing when there's nothing to do. Not manufacturing. Everything is sufficient. So if the bell rings, we sit down and do zazen. And after a while, we transition into, you know that famous Zen mantra that I always like to talk about, and that is, ring the bell. Ring the bell. The bell eventually rings. We stand up, we walk around, we go to meals, we end for the day. And that's one of the things that is beautiful about session. Once we learn how to go to session, how to attend, and the way to attend session is to have no agendas. To just sit when it's time to sit, eat when it's time to eat, rest when it's time to rest. Go to Doksan when it's time to go to Doksan. Leave Doksan when it's time to leave. Open face. A few weeks ago, I made some remarks at our transmission ceremony. And as I recall, I don't recall much of it, but I think I recall towards the end I got to talking about an open heart. That having spent 40, 50 years trying to figure it out, trying to get with it, trying to sharpen things so that I was and with each passing time, whether it be a minute, a day, a week, a year, these final years, all that struggle to try to get with it becomes clearer and clearer that all that struggling was what was preventing me from getting with it. And that what I needed to do was take refuge in my first companion. This is everywhere, without differentiation or degree. And so whatever was happening, wherever I was at, state of mind, condition of body, so forth and so on, winter or summer, at the Zendo, at home, feeding the cat, feeding myself, feeding the squirrels and birds. In that moment, that's it. In Hakuin's song of Zazen this morning, we say, whether going or coming, we cannot be any place else. Cannot be any place else except where you are at this moment. And so an open face to try to let go of all these tricks and necessities and just be ourselves like we were the day we were born. Not even the day we were born, the moment we were born. The moment we were born. hard to imagine the moment we were born. And that's why we had such an open face then, because we weren't imagining anything. We were just hanging out. Hanging out. And so rather than trying to arm wrestle the Dharma into some sort of submission, I've decided that a better metaphor, so to speak, is to have myself just sitting on the front porch with the door open, just listening to the birds, feeling the wind. And inviting the Dharma to choose its time and its way to come to me. Instead of because whatever happens is it. Not a vestige of form. It's not written down in any book. Bodhidharma says a transmission outside the scriptures, independent of words and letters, independent of wrestling with it. Direct pointing. And in this direct pointing and direct realization, and so sitting here for what very well could be the last time. Maybe some more, but maybe not. I like to say to my kids, if I drop dead in the next few moments or something, there might be a few people who are saddened by that, maybe even tearful, but nobody would be surprised. So I cannot be surprised. That as I cross the straits of time, that the far shore is drawing closer and closer. There's an old Negro spiritual, deep river. I learned it when I was a freshman in high school in the choir. I was trying to think of it last night, and I can't remember it perfectly or all the words, but the gist is, deep river, my home is over Jordan. Deep river, carry me across into campground. So that fighting these last years is so fatiguing, such a waste of time. So much in the way of an open face, an open heart. most of the people here are younger than I am. A lot of you, I can just tell, are young enough so that the idea of preparing for death or thinking about your death or anything like that is perhaps unnecessary, inappropriate. Although Cicero, the Roman philosopher and personality, he says, studying philosophy is nothing but preparing for your death. So thinking, working on koans, polishing your practice, all of these, just preparing to die. And that's okay, because that's it also. So death never comes at the wrong time. It always comes, whether we have an open enough face to realize it, death always comes at just the right time. And if we don't realize that, then we need to sit some more. And so at the end of this Dharma talk, I hope for everybody here an open face, an appreciation of this gift of life that we have been given. We didn't ask to be born. Here we are. It's everywhere. It's without form. It shines spectacularly. Look within. Look within.